a member of the parish board here at First Church in Belmont. Please join me in saying, life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift.
Hi, my name is Chris Holton-Jablonski. Welcome to worship with First Church. This is a very special service here with just a few days to go until the election. With the virus still raging through so much of the country, here we are, with this sacred time stretched out before us. Especially now, it is a gift to be together, to share this worship together. A few things to lift up in the not too distant future. Next Sunday, November 8th, we have a wonderful program with John Negley on the Manhattan Project at 2 o'clock. That should be very fascinating. And then the week after that, two wonderful events. We first have a very special congregational meeting at 2 o'clock where we'll be discussing a ventilation project for the sanctuary to help it be the very safest it can possibly be for our eventual return. So do please come to that. That's at 2 o'clock on the 15th. And then there's also a wonderful event with John Bell, who's a longtime member, part of First Church, and also a Buddhist teacher. And the program's on kindness, which couldn't be more timely. And so that's on the 15th, I believe at 4:30. So do please check those out, and so many more opportunities to connect, especially now. So welcome, let us worship together.
When I was 18, I traveled the world, and I spent a significant amount of time in Southeast Asia and in Thailand, where I taught English at a small school in the city of Pattaya. And while I was there, I witnessed many things that I found to be quite different than what I was used to in the States, things that I typically wouldn't see in my neighborhood back home. However, there was one sight that truly puzzled me. One day on my way to work, I passed a group of monks sitting silently in a circle around what looked to be a pile of rubbish, a pile of broken pottery. And when I walked home later that day after school let out, they were still there, sitting in silence, looking at this pile of trash. And that night I couldn't stop thinking about these monks, how still and how silent they were. So the next morning, while I was on my way to work, I was curious if I'd find the monks where I last saw them, in silence and in reflection. And to my surprise, they were gone. But in their place was a giant pot. I mean, it was massive. So once I arrived at work, I told my translator, Chat, about what I saw the day before and what I found that morning. And he responded, well, they just welcomed in a new belief or insight. They're transcending. Wait, what? This confused me, so I asked him to explain. And that day I learned that these monks were actually Buddhist spiritual teachers. They were monastic monks that had given up everything, that were now living on the streets and accepting alms, accepting offerings from others. And they would collect their money and they would buy pots. And not just one pot or two pots, but they would buy a variety of pots. And then they would just break them, completely destruct them, just so they could put them back together again in silence and in reflection to create something new out of the fragments. And I learned that this is a specific practice by these monks to remind them to examine their current beliefs and to take them apart, or even just let them crumble, because with the remains one can construct and build a new belief and gain a new perspective, allowing one to grow and transcend and become more enlightened. They believed the self, you and me, aren't constant, but we're ever changing. So it's good to embrace and live out our beliefs, but let us remember not to worry if ever they crumble, because with the remains we can build and welcome something new and even gain a bit more insight. And remember, everything and everyone around us is in a constant state of change.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. Its sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
I first heard this story at Star Island. It's been a favorite ever since. It's from A Heart with Path by Jack Cornfield. Naomi Riemann, a physician who uses art, meditation, and other spiritual practices in the healing of cancer patients, told me a moving story that illustrates the process of healing the heart, which accompanies the healing of the body. She describes a young man who was 24 years old when he came to her after one of his legs had been amputated at the hip in order to save his life from bone cancer. When she began her work with him, he had a great sense of injustice and a hatred of all healthy people. It seemed bitterly unfair to him that he had suffered this terrible loss so early in his life. His grief and rage were so great, it took several years of continuous work for him to become out of himself and to heal. He had to heal not simply his body, but also his broken heart and wounded spirit. He worked hard and deeply, telling his story, painting it, meditating, bringing his entire life into awareness. As he slowly healed, he developed a profound compassion for others in similar situations. He began to visit people in the hospital who had also suffered severe physical losses. On one occasion, he told his physician, he visited a young singer who was so depressed about the loss of her breasts that she could not even look at him. The nurses had the radio playing, probably hoping to cheer her up. It was a hot day, and the young man had come in running shorts. Finally, desperate to get her attention, he unstrapped his artificial leg and began dancing around the room on his one leg, snapping his fingers to the music. She looked at him in amazement, and then she burst out laughing and said, "Man, if you can dance, I can sing." When this young man first began working with drawing, he made a crayon sketch of his own body in the form of a vase with a deep black crack running through it. He redrew the crack over and over and over, grinding his teeth in rage. Several years later, to encourage him to complete his process, my friend showed him his early pictures again. He saw the vase and said, "Oh, this one isn't finished." When she suggested that he finish it then, he did. He ran his finger along the crack, saying, "You see here, this is where the light comes in." With a yellow crayon, he drew light streaming through the crack into the body of the vase and said, "Our hearts can go strong at the broken places."
Paige Bradley had moved to New York to be a figure sculptor. She says, "I was a bit startled by the power of curators and critics and how they had an anti-figure slant on what they deemed show-worthy. So many of these people felt like everything figurative had already been done, and real art was about being a visionary rather than just showing ability, accuracy, or general talent. Thus, the figure had generally disappeared from galleries, museums, important collections, art fairs, and other shows. If I wanted to stay in the fine art field," she says, "I knew I had to join my contemporaries and make contemporary art. I knew it was time to let go of all of the finely tuned skills I had acquired over the years and just trust in the process of making art. The art world was telling me I had to break down my foundation, let my walls crumble, expose myself completely, and from there I will find the true essence of what I needed to say. So I took a perfectly good wax sculpture, a piece I had sculpted with precision over several months, an image of a woman meditating in the lotus position, and I dropped it on the floor. I destroyed what I had made. I was letting it all go. It was scary. It shattered into so many pieces. My first feeling was, what have I done? Then I trusted it would all come together like I envisioned. We cast all the pieces in bronze and then assembled the pieces so they floated apart from one another. Then I brought in a lighting specialist and we built a crazy lighting system to make it glow from within. It turned out even better than I thought. And the best is that the image of expansion, the one we showed just before this, means so much to so many. I get letters every day, she says. I feel like I really did my job successfully. This is the question, this is the invitation before us today. To not only expect our brokenness, to not only expect the cracks which appear, but to open to them, to open into them. To know that these imperfections, these challenges, these shortcomings are part of the source of our strength and growth and power and beauty. We are surrounded by a perfect airbrushed world. We polish up, we put our best face forward, perhaps because of fear of rejection, fear of the fullness and truth of our beings. We do not lead often with our imperfections. We do not introduce ourselves to one another with everything on our sleeve. I do not lead with the fact that I am an alcoholic in recovery, that I am once divorced, that I am at times explosive and angry with my children, that I lost the Super Bowl of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Fantasy Football League 2 years in a row, holding first place all through the playoffs only to fail when it mattered most. But all these have shaped me, especially, of course, the more important ones. More than all the skillful and polished and capable parts of me, the cracks, the broken bits, and the healing and the growth which have come have formed me. Seeing truly, opening fully to the truth of who we are, of what is here before us, what work is here to do. This is hard work. The poet Sharon Olds writes, maybe 12 or 13 years ago, I came to the end of my marriage, which lasted 32 years. And it was a great shock. It was so unexpected that my sense of self got really shaken. Not myself as a mother or a teacher or a friend, but just me, whoever I was, alone. And suddenly I was alone a lot. Lucille Clifton's poem, "Won't You Celebrate With Me," helped, especially the last 2 lines. Even though I had experienced nothing like what she had, coming of age in this country when she did, still the poem just sounded so true, and it was encouraging. It's good to not let your mind go slithering down into the bad things it likes to get moody about. It has to do with my belief in doing everything I can to remember all that each of us can do for our own personal calm and happiness, and for the people directly around us, and even for the world. Here is that poem. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life I had no model, born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay. My one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. I love this. Come celebrate with me that every day something tries to kill you and fails. These days feel like this. Like something is trying to kill us, to break us, to push us down over and over. And it matters to mark that we survive. To note one day at a time our survival, one triumph, one breath, one moment, however it needs to be measured. We are living now in a time of unparalleled uncertainty and stress. There is so much shifting. There is so much unknown, so much on the line. We're just a handful of days away from this enormous election. So many of us are not sleeping well. So many of us with kids in school are facing the impossible contortions of scheduling and moving through family life while dealing with all this strain, while shepherding and loving our children who are dealing with all this strain. So many of us are facing the challenges of caring for our older parents, navigating the always complex and now even more so complex shifting of relationship, doing our very best to get them what they need in this bizarre time and care for our own hearts. It is all just so much. And still, the brilliance of the sculpture and the poem is that even in all this brokenness, even with all this strain, light still shines. Beauty still holds us and calls us forth. Still we rise. This is one of my favorite things about being woven together in this community. As we get to know one another, you see just how deep and wide the struggle. You see that even though it might look like it from afar, up close, not one person has it all together. No one is free from suffering. No one is free from struggle, especially now. Up close, you see that we are all doing our very best, broken and beautiful, busted up and brilliant, surviving, and even in moments, thriving. And this is nothing short of miracle these days. So much love to you all.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to
We give thanks for dancing on our one leg, snapping fingers to the music, for revisiting our early drawings, for drawing light in the crack with yellow crayon. We give thanks for our hearts growing strong at the broken places, for putting pots back together in silence and contemplation. We give thanks for the constantly changing self, for knowledge and belief broken down and rebuilding. We give thanks for letting it all go, for growing and learning from the hardest parts of our lives. We give thanks for celebrating together all that has tried to destroy us and has failed. We give thanks for beauty, calling us forth. We give thanks that we still rise, that we still thrive here in this very miracle. Amen.